What does it mean to accept yourself? I mean, you hear it from psychologists.
One of the first ways to come to know yourself is to understand that you don't.
From philosophers of recent times.
Because the only real danger that exists is man himself. He is the great danger. And we are pitifully unaware of. We know nothing of man.
And from the ancient prophets and messiahs. But what does it mean? And what if you're an addict?
I don't know, man. I was banging 7-gram rocks and finishing them because that's how I roll. I have one speed, I have one gear. Go!
Or a violent person? Should you just accept that part of you too? Or change it? And are acceptance and change even different things? So, why the hell is this topic so damn confusing? There's two main reasons. The first is that when we say know myself, we don't really know what we mean by myself. Are we talking about our behaviors, our goals, our beliefs, our bodies? Sorry. Our faces, our values, our personality, our taste in music? I mean, some of those things aren't even under your control, so surely they can't count as you, right? And yet, all of them do count as you. I mean, most of your behavior is automatic. I mean, for example, breathing. And what's automatic isn't you, right? But if it's not you who's breathing all day, then who is it? Someone's fucking doing it. Well, now it's definitely you who is breathing, because after I mentioned it, you started doing it on purpose. Still, soon you'll forget that I mentioned it, and it will go back to being an automatic, unconscious process, but it'll still be you who's breathing, even when you're not aware of it. And this is our first clue to solving the problem of knowing yourself, to solving the problem of what the fuck is myself. Because just like breathing, you are doing a lot of things that you're not aware of doing. In fact, almost everything you do, you are completely unaware of. It's just that it's hard to believe that you're doing things that your conscious mind doesn't know about. Even if you can believe it propositionally, it really doesn't feel like it's the case. And many of these unconscious behaviors are not as simple as breathing. I mean, every day you are enacting complex plans, behaviors, social strategies, and beliefs completely unconsciously. And it is these things that you uncover when learning who you are. But what happens when one of these unconscious, psychological or physical behaviors depends on you being unaware of it? That's when it gets juicy. For example, consider a drug addict who believes that life is not worth living. Me 6 years ago. I mean, it may be that this belief, that life isn't worth living, has an unconscious but highly strategic reason to justify destroying himself with drugs. I mean, he's aware that the belief and the addiction are both parts of him, but he's unaware of the true nature of the relationship between the two. I mean, from the perspective of his conscious personality, he is someone who does drugs because he's come to the realization that life isn't worth living, when in reality, he is somebody that believes life isn't worth living so that he can continue to use drugs. Now imagine what would have to happen for him to realize that he's doing that. I mean, first, he would probably have to be willing to give up drugs. I mean, if he's not willing to give up drugs, then he actually needs to be wrong about the relationship between the belief and the action. But to discover the truth, he would at least have to realize that he has an agenda to do drugs at any cost, which I can imagine is quite contrary to the "I can quit at any time" script that lots of addicts have. So let's apply our dilemma. Should you accept the bad parts of yourself or change them? The mistake is to assume that this guy's drug use is the bad part of himself. In reality, it was a symptom of his actual bad side, which is that he's a bullshitter. He's capable of deceiving himself. And until he could see that he was a bullshitter, he literally could not see the path to getting better. Because the first step on that path was to stop bullshitting himself. And it's pretty hard to stop doing something that you don't even know that you are doing in the first place.
Wasn't me.
At this point, you might be thinking this guy is unique, but I promise you that you and me and all of us are just the same. In that many of our beliefs about who we are and why we do what we do are purely instrumental in serving unconscious agendas that we don't even know that we have. So that's the first reason that know yourself or accept yourself is kind of confusing advice. And the second is that in the context of knowing or accepting or acknowledging yourself, we don't really know what we mean by know or accept or acknowledge. I mean, when we think of knowing, we generally think of propositional knowledge, which is knowing that. For example, knowing that you're afraid of spiders. But there's actually 3 more kinds of knowledge that use entirely different memory structures in the brain. Participatory, which is knowing your role, procedural, which is knowing how, and perspectival, which is knowing what it's like. Now, I'm not saying propositional knowledge is useless. All kinds of knowledge are very important. And that's exactly why I want to take a second to talk about the sponsor of this video, which is Brilliant. Because they've basically built an entire platform around this idea that understanding isn't about memorizing facts, it's about participation. They've got thousands of lessons across math, science, programming, data analysis, and even AI. And all of them are designed to help you think better, not just know more. Brilliant doesn't just tell you that something works, it shows you how it works, and then allows you to play around with it until you feel it click. Every lesson is interactive. You're not watching lectures, you're solving problems, testing hypotheses, and watching your intuition sharpen in real time. It's the kind of learning that turns knowledge into skill. The same shift that we've been talking about between propositional and procedural knowing. And that's why I've been using it as like a mental gym lately. And your brain is definitely a use it or lose it type of thing, so it's a good habit to have. Also, each course is crafted by world-class educators from places such as Stanford and MIT. But it never feels like academic or dry. It's very intuitive, visual, and surprisingly fun. To learn for free on Brilliant, go to brilliant.org/Angelo. You can scan the QR code on the screen or go to the link in my description. And the lovely people over at Brilliant have also given us 20% off of an annual premium subscription, which will give you unlimited daily access to literally everything on their platform. Okay, anyway, back to the video. What are we talking about? Oh yeah, knowing yourself. Knowing yourself isn't just about the clear-cut propositional knowledge that you hear from self-help addicts who have a developmental theory for why they love chocolate ice cream rather than vanilla. It's also about the other kinds of knowledge that you kind of feel more than you think, tacit knowledge. If knowing yourself is anything at all like knowing how to ride a bike, it's in that both of them contain tacit knowledge that can't fully be expressed in words. And there are things that you know about how to ride a bike that you don't even know that you know. For example, whenever you turn left on a bike, what's the first step? To move the handlebars to the left? No, it's to move the handlebars to the right. Now, if you know how to ride a bike, then you do know how that works, procedural knowledge, but you probably didn't know that it's the case, propositional knowledge, because the part of you that knows how and the part of you that knows that are completely different. And that is the second reason why knowing yourself is a confusing idea. And it's not just limited to knowing yourself. Knowing other people is kind of confusing when you think about it as well, because you can know somebody, but does that mean that you can describe them with words? Does that mean you can create some kind of list that completely encapsulates their being? Does it mean you know lots of facts about them? I know people who I don't know their birthdays and I don't know where they grew up, but I still know them. It's more about knowing how to respond. It's a dynamic thing, but propositional knowledge is always static. And so when you approach the task of knowing yourself in a propositional manner, you'll probably learn books about childhood trauma and developmental theories and stuff like this, which can be very intellectually stimulating, but doesn't actually give you any progress on the real task. But what about accepting yourself? Contrary to much of modern self-help culture, accepting yourself isn't about submitting to your flaws. It's about making your flaws submit to you. Something that is impossible to do if you don't accept them. A good analogy is this. Self-acceptance is about allowing your flaws to live inside of you so that you do not live inside of your flaws. So what do I mean by this? If your desire for social status lives inside of you, then you can incorporate it into your behavior and decision-making in a controlled way. And so it actually stops being a flaw. Everybody wants status to some degree. But if you live inside your desire for status, then it will completely direct your life without you even realizing it. Just like a fish that's entirely surrounded in water, so doesn't even realize that water is a thing. But sometimes, when you accept one of your flaws, something pretty awesome happens. You realize at the moment of acceptance that it was never a flaw to begin with. Often, the things that we refuse to accept about ourselves are just the inconvenient side of a trait that we actually value. When that trait causes something good to happen, we're more than willing to take credit of it. But when it causes something bad, we quarantine it from our soul and see it as a sort of isolated negative trait that's completely unrelated to the good side. The result is a kind of pick and choose attitude towards ourselves. Instead of accepting the entire package as an inseparable unit, we become selective with our self-love. For example, Harry is very chill and laid back. Because of this, he makes lots of friends quite easily and they all compliment him on his easygoing energy. Therefore, Harry is happy to accept himself as a chill guy and develops a bit of an ego around it. Harry is also lazy and always misses his deadlines. His chillness lives inside of him, but he lives inside of his laziness. He hasn't acknowledged it, and he's not fully aware that it's even a problem. He accepts that he's laid back, but struggles to accept that he's lazy, unaware that these are actually both the same thing. They're both symptoms of the same trait, once showing up in a favorable way, and in the other it's showing up in an unfavorable way. And such is the nature of character traits. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. But because Harry is a human, he doesn't want to put a stain on the character trait that he derives much of his self-worth from by acknowledging its downside. If he stopped seeing that trait as purely good and acknowledged that it's actually neutral, he would have to give up a part of his self-image that he derives much of his self-worth from, which is a scary task if you're not so sure how you'll replace that source of self-approval. Now, this is where we have an opportunity to explain the difference between ego and self-love, and the role that self-love plays in accepting yourself and becoming who you actually are. So, all of your traits have their positive and negative consequences. The ego is the self-image constructed from paying selective attention to the positive side, and the shadow is everything that doesn't fit into that picture. In Harry's case, his ego was, "I'm just such a chill dude." But the neutral truth is that he was simply a passive person, which is neither good nor bad. The downsides of being passive are counterbalanced by the benefits of it. But so long as Harry clings to this ego he has of being a chill guy, then he will continuously judge others for exhibiting the exact character traits that he would most benefit from cultivating within himself. By judging those who aren't as nonchalant as he is, probably by saying they try too hard or something, he will begin to imitate his own chillness and become a sort of parody of himself.
Yeah, no, they doing way too much trying to kill me, bro. That shit's weird.
Which further suppresses the more active side of himself that he needs in order to counteract the downsides of being so passive. But Harry doesn't even see the downsides of being a passive person. He doesn't even know that's who he is. He's still fixated on the positive, which is that he's such a chill dude and everyone else needs to relax and unclench. And why does he refuse to see those downsides? Why does he cling to the ego of being a chill guy? Because he's not so sure how he will tackle the challenge of loving himself without it. And that is the challenge that we're all called upon, to see ourselves as we truly are, and decide to love the whole thing, not to make a pick and mix of our souls. It's a tall task, because deep down, we all believe that our raw, unadulterated selves would somehow be unforgivable. And we forget that when you find yourself unforgivable, maybe it's time to stop apologizing. And that's why self-love is not hippy-dippy shit. It's the key to unlocking self-awareness and individuation. There's no shortcut, no step-by-step plan. You have to really earn it. And it is a hard-won prize, one that many people never really get. I mean, this Jung quote captures the difficulty of it beautifully. To love someone else is easy, but to love what you are, that thing that is yourself, is just as if you were embracing a glowing red-hot iron. It burns into you, and that is very painful. Therefore, to love somebody else in the first place is always an escape for which we all hope, and we will enjoy it when we're capable of it. But in the long run, it comes back on us. You cannot stay away from yourself forever. You have to return, have to come to that experiment to know whether you really can love. That is the question, whether you can love yourself, and that will be the test. So, returning to our initial questions, should you accept yourself or change? From our new perspective, it should be clear that that is a false dichotomy. It's not about either accepting yourself or changing yourself. Accepting yourself is change. The kind of change that makes you more authentic, not less. Joseph Campbell said that the treasure you want most is in the cave you're most afraid to enter. And I think he was talking about a similar thing. Acknowledging the downsides of your character traits is a scary cave to enter, because it requires you to leave your ego at the door. But ego is armor, and we all cling to our armor the most when we're afraid. But what's actually in that cave is you. Yeah, I've had a few particularly potent examples of this in my real life. One especially this year, when I really struggled with jealousy in relationships. I thought I had a jealousy problem, but turns out I just had a problem with my jealousy. It was one of the things that I couldn't fully integrate into my personality. So instead of seeing it as how I feel, as something that I am feeling, something that's me, I sort of quarantined it. I viewed it as a part of myself. And by doing that psychological sleight of hand, I managed to sort of convince myself that it wasn't the real me. That because it was something that I viewed as negative, it couldn't possibly be the real me, because I'm Mr. Magnificent. And it was only in a moment of like a sudden switch, a sudden reversal where I put myself first and sort of like had a moment of self-love that was rare for me. I used to hate when people talked about self-love because I didn't know what they were talking about and it felt kind of hippie. But I had that moment and I saw that that was genuinely me, just as much as the good sides of me are me. And in that moment where it flipped, it stopped being some sickness that I had. It stopped being some like mental illness that I viewed it as before. And it started being a completely valid emotion. It started being a part of me. And so it actually stopped having so much control over me. Anyway, I won't ramble about myself for too long. I think I've kind of done my best at covering exactly what is, at least trying to explain why it's such an important task, knowing yourself and understanding yourself. And hopefully I've given you a little bit of guidance as to at least what not to do when trying to accept yourself. Anyway, I'm yapping a bit. We're back on YouTube. The Compass program is coming soon. And yeah, thank you for watching.
I done came up, went through the ups and downs, but I stayed tough. Never took a shortcut and never gave up. This time around, I'ma stay up.
Oh, also, sorry if the color grade is absolutely terrible. I started and I had plenty of light coming through this. I got a Buddha. I had plenty of light coming through that when I started, and then now the sun decided to disappear, so maybe I record it again tomorrow. We'll see.